One Piece chapter 1086 was insane, and it probably had one of the most anticipated moments that we've always been waiting for, and that is the conclusion of the Reverie. We finally know everything that's taking place, and it's definitely been an amazing ride so far. The Reverie definitely lived up to its hype and some more. We got more things that we didn't even expect. And honestly, this is shaping Egghead to be one of the best One Piece arcs ever. Oda has continued to deliver with these chapters, and it seems like we can only get higher from here on out. The Reverie started back in chapter 900, and this has been in the making for almost 200 chapters, and we're finally there. So it's safe to say that this has been an incredible journey so far, and guys, I cannot wait to see what more Oda has in store if this is only the beginning. But again, before we keep going, guys, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Let's go for 500 likes as usual. Hit the bell if you want to get notified for more content on this channel, and subscribe if you are new here. Now let's get back into this chapter. Now, as we expected, this is seemingly the conclusion of the Reverie based on the last chapters, and it seems like we're finally done here, and we will most likely be moving to the Egghead stuff after this chapter. But this is an amazing conclusion because we got a lot of reveals here, and a lot of reveals that are game changing. And again, a lot of these stuff we kind of saw through based on information that we were getting elsewhere, film read, all this stuff, and to see this in the actual story is kind of insane. First things first, let's talk about the Gorosei, because man, oh man, the reveals here are insane, and this is something that's actually being called out by many people. And yes, it was confirmed that these guys are actually based on planets based on Saturn's name. And here we get the full reveal of their names and title. Now the first and seemingly the youngest one is the blonde Gorosei, and this is someone that a lot of people have referred to him as Sanji's dad just because of several things that happened before, but he basically goes by Saint Shapar Jupiter, which is obviously referencing the planet Jupiter, and he is the agriculture warrior god. Then we move on to the Gandhi Gorosei, who seemingly has the Shodai Kitetsu, which is one of the 12 supreme blades that exist, and he goes by Saint Ethan Baron V Nasujuro. Now, we don't necessarily get the name of the planet from his name, but I'm guessing the V part means Venus or something to that sort. And he is the finance warrior god. And then we have the Justice Warrior God, which is Saint Topman Valkyrie. Obviously, this is in reference to Mercury. Then we have the Long-Bearded guy, which is the Environmental Warrior God, and he is Saint Marcus Mars. Obviously, this is in reference to Mars. And then finally, we have Saint J. Garcia Saturn, which we are already aware of because he is coming to Egghead, and he is the Defense Science Warrior God. Something that's really interesting about all of these titles is that they represent some aspect of the world. Now, what does this exactly mean? I'm not sure, but it could be a reference to their powers or aspects of things that they're very efficient at doing, because these titles aren't necessarily fighting based. They're just more so of elements of, I guess, what makes up a government, because one of them is the finance, one of them is justice, one of them is the environment, one of them is defense, and one of them is agriculture. But then you also see the title warrior a part of it as well, which makes it seem like these guys are actually fighters, which they are. That was confirmed in the previous chapter, but I'm not too sure what to think of these titles other than them being fighters, right? Again, it could just be a role that they play within the war government, and they excel at that role tremendously to the point that they're called gods. So that's very interesting for sure. Now, the Gorosei do also talk about Sabo here, in which they talk about him having a checkered fate, because he seems to be surrounded by people who bear the name of D. And so now they're starting to second guess, like, this guy might be a lot special than we think. Even in the previous chapter, we had a sort of give Sabo a D in his name as well as a joke, but this could be Oda potentially referencing something that could happen in the future in which Sabo obtains this title, because it seems to be a moniker rather than a name, right? So I wonder if people, regular people, can actually attain this name because of them going up against the world government. And so Sabo here might be one of those cases that we might see in the future. And again, they do also mention the checkered fate, which was something that Sengoku specifically mentioned, that people of the D clan have checkered fates. So again, there might be something in store for Sabo here. Interestingly, we do also learn about the weapon that the war government used to eradicate Lucia. And apparently that weapon was one of Vegapunk's creation, and it's called the Mother Flame. Now, this was something that I've speculated about before, in which I talked about Vegapunk maybe possibly saving Lucia in some way, shape, or form. But now that we know it's his weapon, it kind of changes things. Now, it's either one of two things. Either he created it for some other purpose, or he was forced to create it. Now, we do know that Vegapunk sometimes goes to great lengths to satisfy his curiosity, but even Dragon states that Vegapunk would never intentionally design a dedicated killing machine. But again, curiosity could also be a factor. And again, it's been mentioned in this chapter that Imu more than likely has the immortality surgery, so he was probably someone who actually existed 800 years ago and is aware of the ancient weapons of that period. So it wouldn't be surprising if Imu came to Vegapunk and like told him the design or how to recreate this ancient weapon. And of course, Vegapunk is going to fold because he's curious about that time period. So there's a lot that you can take from this. And again, as Sabo mentioned, this seems to be something that was created because there was something above the clouds that Sabo saw. And again, I've always speculated that it was some sort of spaceship, which is seemingly what Sabo is sort of referring to. So we're sort of getting a clear glimpse as to the power of the ancient kingdom. Now we know that Pluton is in Wano, Poseidon is in Fishman Island, and then we have Uranus, which more than likely is tied to something in the sky. It's going to be like a sky ancient power. And so this weapon that Vegapunk here could be Uranus. But again, this was something that was created by Vegapunk, and we know that the ancient weapons have existed before that. So this could be a replica of what Imu saw 800 years ago. And of course, it's not at the level of the originals, because we do learn that they're not able to use this power freely because more than likely it consumes a lot of energy. And we know that Vegapunk is looking for this ultimate power source that can power anything. So I think Vegapunk may have been able to create a replica of an ancient weapon, but he doesn't have the skills or power to obtain this fuel or life source that they had back then. Now, given that this was something created by Vegapunk, it is very likely that the people on Lucia didn't actually die. Maybe he had some sort of counteractive element to it, in which the people of Lucia were actually transported somewhere else, because we know that after the incident happened, the order to kill Vegapunk was then initiated. So something happened which the Gorosei didn't like. And I think we'll get the answers once J. Garcia Saturn actually makes it to Egghead and talks to Vegapunk. Now, we do also see how Vivi and Sabo were able to get out of there. And of course, because of the events that took place, a lot of countries started to rebel, and we see that Sabo and Bonnie were able to get on one of these ships that were allied or tied to one of these rebelling countries. So that's how they were able to get out of that situation. Now, surprisingly, Vivi is still not aware that Cobra more than likely was captured and killed, because she talks about needing a transponder to call her father, right? But obviously that's not going to be possible because he was assassinated. Initially, I thought she ran away because maybe her father told her that something may happen at the Reverie where she might need to run away without him. But it does seem like she was more so afraid of CP0 because they wanted her in custody, right? And that's why she went with Wapol. And funny enough, I wonder what Wapol's role is in all of this. It seems like Oda has something in store for him. Now, we finally arrive at the end of the chapter, and here we get a cool reveal. And apparently a celestial dragon has been sentenced to death. And of course, the person handing out this execution is Saint Figureland Garling. Now, you guys have probably heard of the name Figureland before. This was mentioned in film Red. The reason we know about this is because of what the Gorosei said in the movie, in which they talk about Yuta being Shanks' daughter. And of course, because of that affiliation to him, they assumed that Yuta was a Figureland. So this is definitely inferring to Shanks' last name being a Figureland, which by default would make Shanks a celestial dragon, or I guess a God's Knight. And everything is starting to come together as to the events of God's Valley, because now we know that this dude was actually the judge and former king of the land known as God Valley, which we also know that Shanks was found in a treasure box by Roger and Rayleigh back then. So it makes you question what exactly happened. And I've got to say that this guy's design is amazing. Like, he definitely exudes aura of someone being in like the top 10 strongest characters for sure. And again, it does seem like he might be the strongest of the God's Knight because he is the supreme commander of the God's Knight. So he's the captain amongst all of these people. I wonder if he actually has a son within the God's Knight that actually looks like Shanks. Now, we don't necessarily know his relation to Shanks. He might be like his uncle, his father, his great-grandfather. We don't exactly know where Shanks fits in yet. but it's basically confirmed that Shanks is related to the Celestial Dragon and is more than likely a Celestial Dragon himself. And again, it gives you more reason to believe why Shanks was able to meet the Gorosei like he did. He's probably using his influence from his family to have made contact with the Gorosei like he did. So again, it seems like he still has a connection to the world government in some way, shape, or form, or his family specifically. And it is stated that this person has the power to judge a Celestial Dragon. And again, this goes back to me talking about the hierarchy system within the Celestial Dragon. It seems like first is the Celestial Dragons as the lowest, and then we have the Gods Knight, and then finally we have the Gorosei being the highest ranking Celestial Dragon, which has been stated already. So it seems like the Gods Knights are a warrior class of the Celestial Dragon. And of course, the Gorosei are the pinnacle, or I guess the top of that. And we see here that Misgard is getting executed because of his action during the reverie. I do also want to mention that we do also see the seraphims of the other Shichibukai. We get to see Crocodile, Doflamingo, and Moria's seraphim, the remaining 3 that we didn't see on Egghead. And because of these seraphims, the Marines were able to actually deal with the uprisings that were happening elsewhere. So we can see that that's something that's really helping the Marines as of right now. Even though 4 of them are stationed in Egghead, it seems like these 3 alone by themselves are that much of a threat. My thing is, I'm surprised that they haven't cloned someone like Kaido yet, because those people will actually have more potential than the ones that we're seeing, right? So I think there's probably Yonko clones that we're gonna see more than likely, but that's been reserved for something later down the road. Kaido for sure, and potentially Big Mom, but I'm not sure about Shanks and Blackbeard. But this chapter was amazing, and it was definitely worth the hype. Definitely an amazing chapter for Oda to leave us at, because we have a lot to talk about and a lot to speculate about. As you guys know, One Piece will be going on a 4-week break, so it's going to be a whole month before we see the next One Piece chapter. And the reason why this is happening is because Oda is going to have surgery because he has something wrong with his eyes. I believe it's called astigmatism. And he's obviously going to have surgery to get that repaired, because apparently his case is pretty severe. So we're definitely wishing Oda a good recovery, and hopefully the surgery goes well. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Comment down below what you guys think. Hit the bell if you want to get notified for more content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace. Also, if you do want to become a part of the member squad on the channel, you can support me by becoming a member, and you will get some extra perks along with it. And of course, subscribe if you are new here. But it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.